It was already late at night outside the window, and the ship continued on its way. The crew rested quietly in their cabins until they heard a strange sound that was approaching them. Unfortunately, they realized too late what was happening and did not have time to do anything. They were attacked by a huge monster that lives in these sands. Almost all the people who were in the ship were injured or killed. And one of them fell off a ship in the desert. In the real world, U.S. Army Captain Natalie and soldiers are searching for a missing group in the desert. They were told by radio that traces of the cars of that group had been found, and the military went to this place. Upon arrival, a very nasty storm begins not far from them, which draws the team in. But it was not just a storm, but a portal to the new world. They still do not understand that they are in another world and want to go back to the base from which they came. One of the soldiers climbed the hill and called the rest of the team because there was a missing soldier's equipment behind the hill, and then they noticed their bodies. I couldn't get in touch with the base, since the compasses of the dictionary squad began to navigate with the help of the sun. And that's why they started singing a song. After a while they had to stop because someone's huge skeleton was lying right in front of them. A man appeared from behind the mountain and shot at the soldiers with a bow, but missed and hit this skeleton. He tried to warn them about something, but they didn't pay attention. Sounds began to be heard behind the backs of the team, and they got into the car as quickly as possible. A monster attacked them from the sand. Conventional machine guns and weapons did not help to harm him in any way, and that's why they started cars in order to leave. But they did not learn. The monster overturns the car with its huge paw and kills several soldiers. Running away from the monster, they found a cave, and since it was narrow and the monster could not get into it, they decided to stay in it. But there they are attacked by a flock of spider-like monsters that kill another soldier. Spiders surround the team from all sides. There are more and more of them. The soldiers couldn't cope with them, and everyone dies except Artemis. One of the spiders put her in a cocoon from which she was able to get out. Around her was a huge number of skeletons and cocoons with her dead friends. It turned out that Artemis is in the lair of all the spider monsters. With the help of flares, she makes her way through dark corridors. Along the way, it turns out that another soldier is alive, but a little later a spider kills him with its poison. Artemis got out of the den, but one of the spiders severely injured her leg. It also turned out that monsters are afraid of light and therefore go hunting only at night. After treating the wound, the girl goes to the mountain. There she will be noticed by the man who shot an arrow at their team. Artemis doesn't see him and keeps walking. After passing the mountain, the girl finds a huge number of ships that apparently crashed. Entering one of them, Artemis began to look for water, but a man approached her from behind and held a knife to her throat. The girl didn't want to give up so easily, and that's why they started a fight. The man won. He tied Artemis's hands and took her to the cave where he lived. The cave was closed from all sides, and that's why when the spiders got out of their escape at night, Artemis and the hunter were safe. In the morning, the man woke up first. He came out of the cave and checked the place where the monster usually lives. When he returned to the cave, Artemis was no longer there. She was able to free herself from the rope. And as soon as he came back in, she hit him on the head with something heavy. He passed out and Artemis tied him up. He obviously didn't like it. He was able to get up with his hands tied, and they started fighting again. They didn't notice how they rolled out into the street. The hunter could not get up and rolled straight into the den of spiders. Artemis could not watch as the monsters wanted to drag him to her, and that's why she pulled him out of there. The girl realized that they did not need to be enemies. She shared food with the hunter, and he shared water with her. Since they both spoke different languages, they had to communicate with gestures. Artemis learns that the portals were created by the Heavenly Tower, a structure located on the other side of the desert. The hunter shows that to get to the tower they will need to kill a huge monster Diablo, and spider venom can kill him. Artemis becomes a bait and lures one of the spiders out, and the hunter sets a trap for the monster. The whole operation is going well, and now they have spider venom. Artemis learns to fight with the help of a hunter's unique cold weapon, and now they are finally launching an attack. The hunter manages to inject poison directly into the monster's eye. But the poison did not work immediately, and the hunter has to pierce the monster's head with a sword. But he couldn't help himself and fell to the ground. Artemis continued what she had started and killed Diablo. Unfortunately, The hunter was badly injured, and that's why the girl dragged him through the desert. After a while, he was able to walk by himself, and they continued on their way to the tower. The couple reaches an oasis that is inhabited by huge herbivores, turtles called apsaros. The hunter cooked dinner and they lay down to rest, but they were forced to rise by a herd of rattlos running past them. Artemis and the hunter are rescued by a group of hunters who were nearby. Artemis was very grateful for the rescue, but the chief admiral says that she should not rush to say thank you. She was captured. The hunter was a friend of the admiral, and that's why he remained free. There was some kind of room under the place where her cage stood. With the help of a bench, Artemis broke the castle and jumped down. There she was met by a hunter who asked the admiral to release her, and he agreed. The admiral said that too many people from her world began to make their way to the new world, and he even learned their language. The admiral explains that the Sky Tower was built by the first civilization to inhabit the new world using monsters to protect it. Artemis agrees to help kill rattlos in order to return home. Early in the morning, the whole squad set off. Approaching the tower, Artemis realized that the tower was fueling the storm and the whole hurricane. And the tower itself is fed by lava. Not far from the tower, a portal to the world of Artemis was formed, and it was as unstable as possible. Rattlos was vulnerable just before he spewed flames. The whole squad scattered and tried to figure out where the monster was. Rattlos appears and starts wreaking havoc. The whole team tries to hit the monster as many times as possible when it becomes vulnerable. Each blow of Artemis only angered Rattlos. He couldn't stand it and spewed flames straight into Artemis. The girl stopped running away and did not notice the hole right in front of her. Nanami. Artemis falls through the portal and enters her own world. As soon as she hits the ground, a military helicopter that was looking for Artemis and her team flies up to her. The girl can't stand it and faints. They put her on a stretcher and take her to the helicopter. Artemis is put on a drip, and one of the military asks where her squad is. The girl does not have time to answer as a huge portal forms in the sky from which Rattlos flies out and grabs a helicopter. The engine is damaged and the helicopter crashes. Artemis gets out of it and sees that the monster is hunting for military vehicles and tanks. Planes and helicopters that try to attack Rattlos do not fly for more than a minute as the monster melts them with its fire. Artemis decides that it's time to kill the monster and leave the chaos he is causing in her world. To do this, she hooks onto him with the help of a hook, and that's the moment when he wanted to spit out the fire. The girl cuts one of his wings into two parts and Sledum throws a rocket at him. Artemis distracted the monster, and at that moment the hunter who was able to cross into her world strikes a fatal blow and the monster dies. Although she has a chance to stay, Artemis decides to return to the new world and stay with the hunters. The admiral approaches her with information concerning the appearance of another monster of the Black Elder Dragon named Gormagala. He notes that as long as the portal remains open, there will always be a threat that monsters will pass into the real world. And Artemis and the hunter are tasked with finding a way to seal the portal forever.